Hey everybody, how's it going? It has been quite a long time since we've been able to bring a lovely guest onto our show, and today we have Alex Brown once again. Alex is a videographer based in Columbus, Ohio, and I hold him to be in high regard. And today we're going to be covering a topic of DaVinci Resolve versus Adobe Premiere Pro. So Alex made the switch from DaVinci Resolve, or to DaVinci Resolve from Premiere Pro a little while ago. How long ago was that, Alex?
It's actually almost been 2 years. Yeah.
2 years. Now that's a long time to be working with a program and really getting to know its ins and outs. I've been using it for color for a while now, but only really started using it for editing once I launched my YouTube channel. Alex, was that kind of a hard transition for you, switching from Premiere Pro, which we learned in school, to working with Resolve full time?
Yeah, it actually was pretty difficult. It's not that the program is really different. It's just a lot of translation things and relearning keyboard layouts and things like that was kind of just hard to wrap my head around.
It is really frustrating, and I know when I started using DaVinci Resolve, there's certain functionalities that you really expect to work the same in between the two programs, but they didn't. One thing that distinctly stands out in my mind that they've thankfully fixed now is it used to be inside of DaVinci Resolve, if you select multiple clips at once and you adjust the trim points on one of them with multiple selected, it'll only trim one clip at a time. Did you have any sort of growing pains like that for yourself when you were making that switch?
Yeah, it was actually the blade tool um, was C in Premiere Pro, and couldn't wrap my head around that it was B in DaVinci Resolve, and I, for the life of me, and I can't remember what C does now in DaVinci, but it did something that I didn't want it to do every single time that I wanted to like switch to my blade tool. And so it was like so frustrating at first that actually in my first couple months I would start editing a video in Resolve and then get so frustrated that I couldn't remember the keystrokes that I would stop the project and do everything in Premiere, just redo it all because I was so frustrated with Resolve.
That's really funny, honestly. The obvious question here is, did you not just change your keyboard customization?
No, because I didn't want to change it. I wanted to learn a new keyboard layout because I wanted to have the language, the second language of knowing Resolve and Premiere keystrokes.
It's kind of cool to think of it as a second language, but I know I still get tripped up just switching from Mac at work to using PC at home with the command and control keystrokes. Yeah, it's super frustrating. So props to you for taking the time to learn that and kind of immerse yourself in the Resolve culture there.
I still mess myself up sometimes, but I would say the best thing that I did to learn the keyboard layout and the keystrokes and everything was I went to Google Images and I downloaded a keyboard layout, and I would only have one window up with the editor, and then I would have the other screen up with the keyboard layout so I could just quickly glance over at it, and I could double check myself before I messed up what key I clicked.
That's kind of a cool trick. I never would have thought to do that. I like that. Did you ever look into like those actual keyboard covers that go over your existing keyboard that have like the shortcuts printed on them?
I did, but I didn't want to ruin my keyboard by putting stickers all over it because I've seen really bad ones that people have done that with, and they like slip off and it like gets all like dirty and gooey, and I just like couldn't bear the thought of doing that to my keyboard.
So it's kind of a humanitarian thing. You don't want to put the poor creature through that.
Yeah, uh-huh.
All right. So we've talked a little bit about that transition process of what it was like switching from Premiere to DaVinci Resolve, but I really want to know why. Why bother making the switch at all?
So for me personally, actually, why I did it for my personal business was because it's significantly cheaper than paying Adobe $60 a month or whatever it is. I haven't paid it in so long. I don't remember what it is. Then, and actually at home, I only edit in the free version of Resolve. So I haven't even paid DaVinci, or I haven't paid Blackmagic anything. So that was more of like a cost-cutting thing. Why I did it at work was because our production company was switching to it. So kind of to align with them, because we work so closely with them, we try to kind of mimic the things that they're doing with their camera equipment or with their computers or editors or anything. So I switched to it because of them switching to it. And that's kind of the thing that like pushed me to really learn it.
Yeah, that makes sense, that you're kind of seeing this higher tier of production and emulating what they're doing, bringing that into your own way of doing things. The cost thing is definitely a factor, and it's a big reason why I personally cut on Resolve for my home projects these days. I still am definitely a lot faster using Premiere Pro, and there's still these little hangups that always catch me inside of DaVinci Resolve that where it doesn't behave the same way as Premiere Pro. But going on from there, and speaking of Premiere Pro, let's talk about the past. I'm sure there's still got to be some functionality inside of Premiere Pro that you like pine for, that you miss. What do you miss from Premiere Pro now that you're using DaVinci Resolve?
Oh man, that's a hard one. I honestly haven't thought much about Premiere in a long time. I can't even remember the last time I opened.
You're not just telling Resolve that, right? You're not just telling Resolve. Are you under duress?
Resolve is right on the other side of the camera.
Actually, Resolve is right behind me here. Oh, I'm on the wrong window. There we go. That's better.
Oh, I miss seeing light color options in the inspector in Premiere. Like I could access red raw file data in the inspector in Premiere Pro, and I can't do that in Resolve. I have to go to the color tab to do that, which is fine. It's just more clicks around is the only thing. But I kind of miss just like being able to like quickly access that like without even changing where I'm at.
That makes sense. Do you work with RAW a lot?
With Red Raw, almost every day. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not shooting RAW here. Shooting straight to good old-fashioned H.264.
It's a different workflow for sure.
I'm sure. Now, for myself, something that I really like inside of Premiere Pro that I'm always struggling with in DaVinci Resolve is just the ability to export multiple timelines easily with different render settings. So inside of Premiere Pro, if I have like 3 different versions of a cut, one for like vertical video, one for horizontal, and maybe something that just needs a different encoding setting, I can just select all the timelines at once in my project bin, right click, export media, and it'll send it to media encoder where I can fine tune my settings. Inside of DaVinci Resolve, if you have 6 different timelines that you want to render out, you have to manually go into each timeline and hit add to render queue. And I just find that to be a lot slower. And especially for my professional work where I'm sometimes handling 30, even up to 50 timelines, it's not effective to do that. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I guess now that you mentioned that, I think the ability to send something to media encoder is actually something I do miss from Premiere Pro. And something that I would do a lot because I would still be working in Premiere while I was exporting something in media encoder, and you just can't do that. So yeah, I definitely would sympathize with that. I guess I've kind of gotten over that and I kind of forgot about that. But yeah, I do miss that. That is a good functionality. I wish that Blackmagic would make a third party like media encoder style thing that you could send it to. But I guess that kind of defeats the purpose of what they're doing with Resolve. So I don't know if they'd ever do that or not.
So you know what the other thing that I really miss from Premiere Pro when I'm working inside of DaVinci Resolve is? The thing that I really miss is the ability to customize my workspace. Blackmagic Design is really forcing you to kind of work in their locked environment where you can't move windows around as you see fit. I can't decide which tools are important to me at any given moment. You're just forced to use whatever they give you.
Yeah, I guess again that's something I kind of forgot about. um, that was really confusing to me because when I first started, I wanted to like pull my windows around and like drag everything around and like have one window that was like full screen, and not have like the monitor full screened. So yeah, that was a little weird to get used to at first. That kind of in the Apple-esque way, you're kind of stuck with what they give you and that's it.
All right, Alex, I think I've spent enough time bashing DaVinci Resolve here. So let's talk about the good, what we like about Resolve that we just don't have inside of Premiere Pro. And I'm going to start with, I have the studio version of DaVinci Resolve, and I've been really impressed with the H.264 decode performance. I feel like it cuts a lot smoother inside of DaVinci Resolve than it does in Premiere Pro for some reason. Have you had any similar findings?
I'm working with raw more than compressed media, so I can't really speak to that. But in terms of raw and how it handles it, I have noticed that I don't have to create proxies or kind of do any like pre-rendering of clips in DaVinci Resolve. So that's pretty helpful because it takes a lot less time. I can just drop the resolution and just go through the clips I'm using.
Yeah, so it just kind of offers that faster workflow. And I honestly really like the optimized media option that DaVinci Resolve has as well. If you have a clip that's choking, just right click it in your bin, select generate optimized media, and bang. It's still just basically generating proxies in the background, but you don't have to worry about cleaning up those files later. It just sort of puts it into a temp bin, which is wonderful. I love that functionality. It feels like it's a lot more streamlined than Premiere Pro's approach.
Yep.
The other thing, this is going to be kind of obvious to basically anyone, but DaVinci Resolve blows Premiere Pro out of the water when it comes to color correction. The amount of flexibility and control that you have with a node-based system like DaVinci Resolve, just, you can't even compete with Premiere Pro. What have been your findings switching to Resolve for color correction versus maybe Lumetri or even the older tools that you may be accustomed to, such as three-way color corrector or curves?
Yeah, I was actually, I worked kind of frequently. I did use Lumetri a lot, but I would use Red Giant's Colorista Pro, I think was what it was called, which wasn't a node-based system, but it had kind of the same tools that Resolve has, just in DaVinci's layers, or not DaVinci, in Premiere's layers. But again, the amount of flexibility you have with a node-based system versus even like just layering Lumetri effects is so much better than Premiere has it. And the amount of tools that you can finely tune your color, and you can select certain colors and pull those out or change those or whatever you need to is extremely useful.
It's just leaps and bounds better in terms of that color control, as you mentioned there. And I actually have a video that covers this topic. You can check it out up here, talking a little bit more in depth about why Lumetri is maybe not the answer when it comes to especially secondary color correction. So moving forward from here, let's talk about Fusion a little bit. You've been using it a little bit more lately. Can you share your experience with Fusion so far?
It's even more frustrating than learning the keyboard layout for Resolve. So don't go into it lighthearted.
What sort of use cases have you had for Fusion so far?
So I actually, what spawned me in starting to change it was I needed to paint out an outlet that was on a wall. In a video that I was shooting, it was like a gray wall, and there was one single white outlet in the bottom corner. So I was painting that out, kind of like the clone stamp tool in After Effects, and I didn't want to export the whole video or the clips that I needed to do and like re-import those into After Effects and do it there, and then re-export it and put it back in into my timeline. I kind of just wanted to do it there, so I was like, I'll do it in Fusion, like I'll give it a try. That's the only thing that I've done that's like really like for something. The rest has just been like practice, trying to get myself up to snuff and like figure out, kind of teaching myself the similarities between After Effects and the differences, and trying to figure out how to translate that kind of in the same way that I did with Premiere and Resolve. So I've been learning about kind of how to lightly do motion graphics. I've been trying to learn how to composite and mask out different things and stuff like that.
That's really cool. Practice makes perfect. Just making sure that you're prepared for whatever may come up in the future. And I had kind of a similar experience of being very frustrated trying to learn Fusion. This was actually just a few days ago, where I was working on some new motion graphics titles for my channel, and I had a lot of frustration trying to figure out how to mask out layers that were being combined in a merge node. We've actually talked a little bit off camera about this, and you said there's a good reason behind it, but we're not going to get into that today. But there has just been a lot of a learning curve to it. My impression has always been that Fusion is probably more powerful than After Effects, more robust, and will give you more control in the long run. But I feel like it's even harder to learn than After Effects, and After Effects itself has a pretty substantial learning curve. One thing that I was very pleasantly surprised to discover recently was the spline editor inside of Fusion. This is like the time graph in After Effects. I was convinced that it wouldn't let you have control over your keyframing properties inside of Fusion. So when I stumbled across this and I was like, what's this button do? Spline sounds good. I like splines. I hit the button and I was like, whoa, hey, this changes everything. So it's kind of fun having that sense of discovery, but it is so frustrating trying to learn something new. And especially after you've been using the same programs for so long, the learning curve, I guess, is going to be rough, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
So I think that wraps up my thoughts on DaVinci Resolve versus Premiere Pro. Alex, do you have any closing remarks on maybe people who are wanting to transition to DaVinci Resolve from Premiere Pro, or are just even considering it?
I would say, honestly, just jump in. Know you're going to get frustrated and know that it's going to be difficult, but I would say go into it lightheartedly and don't get too discouraged whenever you click the wrong thing and your preview monitor goes away or your program monitor goes away and it's just gone and you can't figure out where it is. Just take a second, walk away, and then Google a couple of things.
You know, that sounds better than what I was going to say. I was going to say go in with a masochist mindset, but I think I like your verbiage a little bit better there. Anyway, that's all we've got for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Alex, and thank you all of you for watching. We will catch you all in the next one. Bye.